kids today.
I'm glad we had the chance to meet, Brian. Looking back after we first started talking about your encounter years ago, I started doing some research, and I realized how much your story at the time, which happened almost 20 years ago, I realized at the time how much your story is circulated. But in meeting you, I wanted to get down and personal to find out what that experience was like.
Can you tell me that?
Sure. It was and remains the most frightening experience of my life. I think about it all the time. I drive by that movie theater where it happened practically every day.
You just live a few miles from there.
And every time I drive by on my way to work or wherever I'm going, I cast a glance over and I remember. And it's something that I can't control even. It's just an automatic response because this event is so ingrained in my memory. It makes me frightened even to think about it. And
you're going to retell the story every time.
It never changes. You would think that I've told this story probably now, I don't know how many hundreds of times to people. Sometimes informally, sometimes in a formal setting like this. And it never changes. There's always that moment where it flashes back into your mind and you're right there re-experiencing it all over again. I mean, it really is a sort of post-traumatic stress kind of thing, almost a response. And I don't panic nearly as much as I did at some points in the past, but there's still fear involved in this.
And even to retell the story.
I imagine it does cause you to shake just thinking about that night.
Well, I mean, I do believe that I was literally a razor's edge away from death. And people may think that that's dramatic. People may think that that's overwrought, but I don't. I mean, I was there. I know what I experienced. I know what I felt. I know that what I saw was correct. My eyes were not deceiving me. My emotions and my intuition certainly were not deceiving me.
And since that time, like you said, you've done numerous interviews, different perspectives. You've been on television talking about this. And you've also run into skeptics. I mean, we know about skeptics.
Plenty, yes, plenty. And of course, the first thing they go to is that these contacts are available and people can put them in their eyes and whatnot, and that's true. But this was also a fairly long time ago when, you might be, Michael Jackson or somebody might be able to get some of those, for a video or whatever, with Thriller and his custom contacts. But he talked about, I remember reading an interview with that, how much that hurt his eyes to have those in for even just a few minutes. I mean, so these kids, I don't think that they're running around at the time, with a pair of $500 contacts each in their pocket, to just pull a prank on a dude in a car.
Those contacts, and that's what most people don't realize. And when I did my research, that's kind of things I started thinking about. I started thinking about nearly 20 years ago what even existed as far as Hollywood prosthetics, that they use in horror movies nowadays. And nowadays, you see these types of things. They're relatively available to the public. But back in the day,
no.
they didn't exist,
Not
except to Hollywood.
Right.
And so a couple of 9 to 12-year-olds wandering around in a parking lot are not...
Exactly.
Not gonna,
97.
Yeah, they're not going to have these
96.
things. And besides that, even before I noticed this effect or whatever... there was this fear response that kicked in immediately. It was completely irrational, and at the time I thought, this doesn't make any sense. Why am I? There's no reason for me to be frightened of these kids, but it just kept going and going and going and getting worse and worse and worse until finally the big reveal at the end, and I I don't know. I mean, it was really just one of the most.
Incredible, I guess you could say.
It was
Right.
so frightening. I mean, it was just so absolutely frightening, and to know that you're being almost, I felt like hunted in a way by these kids. I mean, it was that was what really bothered me in the end. I mean, I felt like that I had been almost some sort of a prey animal in a way for these guys.
Now, a lot of our viewers probably don't truly understand what it is you might have encountered, and obviously you don't.
Right.
It was very, very strange. The common term that a lot of people use, just for our viewers, is what we refer to as BEKs, black-eyed children.
Right.
That's the term we use now
Right.
to more or less label them, but we really don't know what they are.
Right. And that term comes from my original story where I was being a little flip in the beginning. I didn't know what I would call it, those darned black-eyed kids or something.
Right,
And I was
right.
trying to.
You're just referring to their eyes.
But
from what you saw.
people really locked onto that for some reason.
Right.
And whether I like it or not, that's the official acronym.
What just to describe to the viewers here on YouTube, because there are other stories out there, other encounters that people have had since those days, and there were encounters even before you had, but it wasn't as well documented.
Yeah.
Just explain a little bit to the viewers. Obviously the eyes, but there were other features too that stood out.
Right. Well, I mean, there was a little bit of a. I mean, even though, like I said, there was the guy who was doing all the talking had a sort of olive complected skin. There was still something about it. I would say
And
a
you're
little bit
remembering right now when you close your eyes, right? When
a little bit of a pallor about them. I mean, there was something that didn't really register. I mean, in retrospect, looking back, and I've known other people who have seen them and have said that they're very pale, or there's sometimes they can even see veins and whatnot. But also there was just this. Especially the one who was speaking, he was so practiced, I guess, in the way that he was talking to me. I mean, I interview kids all the time, and most of the time, especially even up into that age, they're kind of awkward and halting and not really very confident, especially when you tell them that you're going to be writing down everything they say or whatever, or videotaping them.
The whole account.
And they don't talk like this. Okay, this kid could have sold cars. I mean, this kid should have been selling things, but he was just so smooth and practiced and whatnot. Hey, mister, we need a ride. And, not in a sense of, it was very direct, and there was this sort of sense of almost control about it. I mean, in terms of he wasn't initially menacing, but there was this sort of directness, about the words and the diction and whatnot. And so it was really, that was something that I noticed, because I mean, at that point you really start to understand that you are in that's when I think that I started to become suspicious.
Right.
I mean,
that something's not right here.
That this doesn't add up. The words coming out of this kid's mouth and the way that he's able to use them and manipulate them, and even something about the rise and the fall of the way he was speaking, his diction and whatnot. I mean, it was almost kind of quasi hypnotic in a way.
Not human.
Yeah.
Actually, I guess if you were to tell
and it was really at that point that I think that's when my mind clicked on and said, pay attention. And I try to pay attention most of the time anyway. I'm a newspaper reporter, and I'm supposed to remember details and all these sorts of things. And So at that point, I really kind of started looking at these kids. The curly-headed one, of course, did all the talking. The freckle-faced kid who was in the background didn't say anything, and he kind of had this sort of blank expression on his face. Not that he was not expressive in any way, but I mean, he was just sort of hanging back and watching to see what was going to happen.
He wasn't a leader.
Yeah. The only time that he actually had an expression on his face is when I was trying to get out of there, and it was a look of absolute confusion, as if this just does not happen commonly. You know.
As if in a sense that they're programmed in
Yeah.
a sense, but all of a sudden the program is not running the way
Right.
that they want it to run.
Right. I mean, or you know, things usually run in a certain way for them, and most people don't see past the illusion or what have you, or something. I don't know. I'm projecting a lot there, but that's the way that I feel. That's what that look meant to me. It's like we've been found out.